We up and running?
Yeah, we are.
So you want me to look at you, not at the camera?
Either or, it's fine. So Ian has graciously given me some of his time this weekend, and we're just going to have a chat about some dog training stuff. So one of the things I wanted to ask you about was we're still seeing it, although we've made massive progress in the last 30 years towards non-aversive dog training, we're still seeing people using not even so much metal collars, or we're still electric collars a little bit, but people telling their dog no, you know, or physically manipulating their dog into position. So it's just to see what your thoughts are about, you know, telling your dog no.
Well, I think that, I mean, since you use positive techniques, you know, like toys and treats in training, it must be difficult for you to think, why on earth are people still doing it this way?
Yeah.
Which is not very effective, and it ain't much fun for the dogs and for the owners. I actually think the reason why people are still doing it is that people who are using rewards and positive dog-friendly training techniques aren't quite finishing the job.
Okay.
And I see training, you know, it really improved from the 70s, 80s, 90s. I think it peaked at the end of the 90s, and it's now coming down. And that ironically, we're using too much food, we're chucking it at the dogs, we're not phasing it out. So what started as using food as a reward, using food as a lure, has now become bribing.
Yeah, okay.
And a lot of trainers are not addressing what do we do when the dog doesn't do it.
Yeah.
What do we do when the dog's being naughty? What do we do when the dog pees on the carpet, chews your shoes, or won't come when called, or won't sit stay? And trainers aren't doing that.
Okay.
And so I think a lot of owners have got frustrated, they seek help elsewhere, they go to a trainer, it's like, whoom, 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 they say, look, he's trained. No, he's actually now sitting because he daren't move, because he's on leash, and if he moves, you jerk him. You haven't trained him, you've just trained him to mind his manners when he's on leash, you see. And you've made training him off leash much, much harder. So going back to the mid-90s, we were so close. We were so close to like nailing it. And I was a great believer that any non-instructive punishment is just a waste of time, and it's close to abuse, because I can prove it doesn't work.
What do you mean by that non-instructive punishment?
Something like no.
Okay.
You know, reach for your mug. Okay, so the success of that working now depends on my precise timing, that I'm consistent, I have good timing, which most owners don't have.
Yeah.
And so on the other hand, if I said, oh, by the way, when we're doing interviews, please don't touch your mug. Well, that's 10 times smarter. Why? Because if you touch your mug and I shout at you, well, that's really dumb, because you've already misbehaved. Yeah. Now I'm being nasty, and you probably wet your pants when I did it. But if I calmly instruct, okay, beforehand, then you don't do it. But if you forgot and you reach for your mug, I'd say, please don't touch your mug.
Yeah, okay.
That's all we need to do in a quiet voice. And right from the beginning, you know, when we started to make training a science, it was wrong. Reward versus punishment. It should never have been that.
Yeah, yeah.
It should have been reward the dog for getting it right. Nothing is as simple and beautiful as that the dog or your child or horse has got it right, and you say, good horse, or that's nice drawing in your homework, or good, settle down, good, you know. It's so beautiful in its simplicity.
So even there, when you're saying about like not touch your mug, and what I would say to people as well is teach your dog what you want them to do. So, you know, if you say to me you don't want me touching your mug, I'm now sitting there thinking, the mug's what, you know, it's the mug that's important. But what I would say to, you know, the person is, if you can sit holding your hands, you know, so
absolutely,
we can sit here
hold your hands, or like I could say to you, here, would you like a beer? Yeah. Well, you got a beer in this hand, you won't be touching the mug with this hand, you get it?
Yeah.
And so with the dog, if he's chewing on shoes, I would say, chew toy.
Yeah,
so prior training is necessary. He must understand the word that you're going to use in the correction. But now by correction, I don't mean anything physical.
Yeah.
I mean, physical corrections, they don't work. They don't work. They don't work. I mean, I've tested this as a scientist. I've gone in and watched people train, and I count what I call sort of request correction or command correction ratios. So for example, every time they say heel or sit stay, how many times do they correct the dog?
Okay.
All right. Well, if a punishment is a punishment by scientific definition, it's a stimulus that causes the immediately preceding behavior to decrease in frequency such that it's less likely to occur in the future. Well, so I test them and I count up command correction ratios, and it's about 2.7. Every time someone says heel, if they have the dog on leash, they jerk it 2.7 times. So the word heel actually becomes a secondary punisher.
Yeah.
You know, the command becomes a secondary punisher.
And what do you mean by that, just for folk that don't understand what secondary punisher means?
Oh, a secondary punisher is simply something that predicts a punishment is coming.
Okay.
So let's say you live with an alcoholic parent and you see him get angry and go to the liquor cabinet. You know it's all going to hit the fan in a moment. Yeah. So stimuli that predict a punishment is coming, it becomes a secondary punisher. It's a predictor. Well, I then went back and tested 2 weeks later. It was exactly the same. They're still jerking away. Well, that means the dogs haven't learned anything.
Yeah.
You see, because if a punishment does cause behavior problems to decrease in frequency, then by definition, the frequency of punishment should decrease until you get to 0. So we know that things like no, leash jerks are very ineffective, and they depend absolutely on the owner being consistent and having exquisite timing.
Yeah.
Well, the consistency disappears in real life with a dog. Like, what the dog will learn is not don't pee on the carpet. It learns don't pee on the carpet when the owner's there.
Yeah.
You get it? So straight away we create a bigger problem, that now the dog's saving his urine up for when you go to work. And he's barking when you're away, and he's chewing your furniture.
Yeah.
You know, so I've always thought we must be instructive. Just saying no, jerk, shock. It's a very difficult way to learn. You know, it's like if I started poking you now periodically. What the hell am I poking you for? It's because you've got a blue shirt on. Don't you get it?
No, I don't.
So you would never work it out.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I teach the dog words like outside, and easy like this. Bunch of kibble, and I pick one up, I stand by the back door and I go, outside. Toss it outside. Inside. Inside again. Outside.
Yeah.
So the dog learns, aha, whenever he says outside, the kibble goes outside. So now when he says outside, I'm going to run outside. Well, the first time he runs outside, after you say outside, but before you toss the kibble, he's learnt the meaning of the word.
Yeah.
So I toss 5 bits of kibble.
Yeah.
All right? So now if he pees on the carpet, with one word, I can say outside. And at about that volume, the volume and the tone say there's something urgent here. So probably we squeeze off his sphincter and he stops peeing. But he knows instantly they want me outside.
Yeah.
You get it? Chewing something wrong, I say chew toy. He's about to jump up, sit. Or he is jumping up, I say sit. You know, and that's a great example of how reward trainers have gone wrong. There are lots of people teaching when the dog jumps up, you turn your back on him. It's stupid, stupid. I mean,
the only thing from that though, and what I've seen is, if the dog can then learn, if he jumps on you, you'll say sit and he'll sit.
No.
You're teaching jumping and sit.
You see, this is the fear everyone has. Test it out. It doesn't happen. What the dog learns is, when I see a person, the default setting is to sit, then they pat me on the head. So, yeah, I would argue, I agree with your argument that the dog thinks he's training us, but for the good. We now end up with dogs that, when you approach, they sit.
But so how do we break? So we've got the chain. Dog jumps, we say sit, the dog sits. So we're training jumping and sitting, but we need to train sit individually prior to that.
Prior to that, yeah.
Okay.
You see, this is only when it goes wrong.
I see.
And my view is, if it's gone wrong, then just tell the dog what he should be doing. We've got to communicate 2 pieces of information. Stop what you're doing, it's annoying me, and you should be doing this.
Yeah.
So rather than just jerking, or shocking, or shouting, I just very quietly say one word, okay? We then get to the problem of non-compliance. So this is when the dog's manners go wrong.
Okay.
You know, so very simple. We teach the dog how we want to do it first. It's very simple to teach the dog where to pee, what to chew, when to bark, to shush on cue. This is another one where dogs get abused. Jumping up and shushing. You read the dog books and they do horrible things. It's so simple. The dog barks and you say, Rover, shush, and you let him smell something. As soon as he sniffs, he stops barking. So you don't give him the food. You hold on to it, you say, good, shush, 1, good shush 2, good shush 3. Then you give them the food. That piece of food only rewards the dog for being quiet, because the power or the effect of a reward or a punishment can only influence behaviours that happen in the last 3 seconds.
Okay.
So you could argue, oh, my dog barks so he can sniff food. First, before we do that, I teach him to bark on cue.
Yeah.
So I can practice woof, shush, woof, shush, woof, shush, so he knows what shush means. Now in real life, when he barks, I say, shush, on your bed,
yeah,
get your chew toy. And then later, after 3 seconds certainly, but 5, 10, I'll go over and say, there's a good boy,
yeah,
there's a good boy. It's so simple.
Yeah.
I don't even like shouting, you know. And I used to think, I guess 35 years ago, when we started the puppy classes, that if the dog got it wrong, you had to raise your voice. So we were instructive.
Okay.
What we brought in was lure reward training, so you could teach dogs the meaning of human words very quickly. So I would say to a dog, sit, there's a good dog. What if he didn't sit? I would say, Rover, sit. Sit! And then he would do it. It was very effective, but I was shouting and I knew it wasn't quite right.
Okay.
And then actually it was my first wife who said, well, maybe it works even if you don't shout. And I tried it out, and son of a female dog, it is so effective. It's so effective that you can take a dog that has no training whatsoever, and you can teach him to do a distance sit over there if he's sniffing horse poo or playing with another dog, just with no training. And what you do is you come up with a new name for him. This is cool. Why? We're totally inconsistent, okay? And dogs learn that we're inconsistent. Well, we're going to tell him now, when I want you to be consistent, I change your name. So like, I live with Hugo.
Yeah.
If I want him to do it, I call him Hugo Louis. And he learns whenever he's called Hugo Louis, I follow up.
Yeah.
That's all I do.
Yeah.
So we'd say, Hugo Louis, sit. He doesn't do it. And I walk up to him as quickly as possible saying, Hugo Louis, sit. Hugo Louis, sit. Hugo Louis, sit. When he does it, thank you. 2 steps back, Hugo Louis, come here. Hugo Louis, sit. Good dog. Treat, 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 treat. Go play. So from the very first trial, what he learns is he has to do it twice. And he doesn't get to go play again until he does it following a single command.
We'll take a break there,
yeah.
of course.